if you know that someone, and most buyers, they're not in the market immediately, right? But they will come back to you when the timing's right. It could be in a month, 2-3 months time. If you learn as a seller that this short-term relationship you're having with someone today who can impact your quota this month, the way to truly accelerate is also to learn how to build slightly longer-term relationships with your prospects who aren't ready right now. So it's actually the art of delayed gratification. Someone saying, hey, John, not right now, but that's because I've got these 3 priorities and then I'm going to get to this, but it's going to be in February. And if I'm going to build a relationship with you between now and February without just ignoring you or putting you into some random automated email thing, well, then maybe I've got a shot at getting your business in February. The best reps that I've seen are the ones that at the end of the day, when they say, I've got 1 meeting for now, I've got 2 meetings for January, and then I've got 2 that I've completely disqualified, and I'm willing to back myself to nurture them well enough to be able to get their business in the future and delay the gratification of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on the Sales Machine, we're joined by Chris Ritson, the B2B sales authority who didn't just teach the playbook, he's lived it. From scaling Perkbox's revenue from $18,000 to $10 million to leading global teams at Workday and at Tessian, Chris is now the founder of the SDR Leader, the training ground for the world's top performing SDRs. He's a master of cold outreach and modern leadership. If you're in B2B space, listen up. Chris is here to show us how to stop spamming the market and start building a sales machine that actually converts. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, it's just going to be a lot of fun. I've been in sales for nearly 30 years, but truth be told, I was going door to door when I was like 10, selling newspapers, knocking on your door to mow your lawn. Like, it's just inbred in me. I had to buy school clothes, so it is what it is. How'd you cut your teeth in sales?
My first intro into sales was I started my own business when I was like 16. And obviously when you start your own business, you think, cool, I've got my own business. I'm an entrepreneur now. And then I was like, well, I don't have any customers. So I need to go and find some. So I literally just went on like Facebook, MySpace back in the day. I did some, I didn't even know it was called cold outbound, but I started reaching out to people then, just in like my school year and stuff like that, and started trying to sell them whatever I was like selling or pushing at the time, basically to try and get my first like early customers. So that was like my first experience of selling cold, was just actually on social media, weirdly enough. It wasn't knocking on doors. I did a bit of that after that point. It wasn't cold calling. It was weirdly enough in the DMs. So I was in the DMs like 18, 19 years ago, creating my first customers, but I had no idea it was called or would be called in the DMs or cold outreach in the DMs.
Yeah. I've been building and scaling door-to-door sales teams all over the world, literally into the thousands. At one time I was managing, over 2,000 directly. And then I got involved in overseeing and training everybody in Southeast Asia, which was over 4,000.
Wow.
We didn't call them SDRs. We called them leaders, team leaders, sales leaders. Only when I got into this online space and built a software company had I ever heard of SDR. And then, all this different go-to-market strategy and ICP, ideal client profile, all of this stuff started coming at me left and right. And I'm like, what is all this different terminology from SDR to BDM to AE? I was like, isn't everybody just in sales?
Yeah, I know, right?
But academia likes to complicate things, or a lot of the times people want to actually justify that they have a degree by using confusing terminology, or they just want to put everything, label everything to keep it simple in, based on how they've been taught. And that's fine. I've adapted, adjusted. Tell me about the first time that you got involved with cold calling and or as an SDR.
Yeah, it was straight out of college. So at college, you obviously do your 3 or 4 years of studying, and then at the end of it, most people are kind of like, well, I need a job. So what do I do? And whatever they've studied, so I think it's like 90% of people now, they don't actually go into anything to do with what they've studied. And I was kind of the same, but I did but I was lucky in some ways because I did psychology and neuroscience, which, there's so much there from a sales perspective, right? In terms of like psychology and building relationships, all that sort of stuff. So I got sold by the salesman on getting a sales job, if that makes sense, right? They literally just said, Chris, you're going to earn loads of money. You'll earn way more than all your like buddies and housemates. Why don't you just come and try it? So I tried it first day, sat down, and my boss was just like, go and beat 319 dials. That's the most that someone's done recently on their first day. So he just gave me a phone, gave me a list, and told me to call people. And I was like, obviously, speaking to people, I had no idea what to say to anyone. I was just calling them. I was like, hey, it's Chris. Hey, because I wasn't even given a script, didn't even know really the company or what we were selling. I hadn't even been told anything about like the product or the people we were meant to call. It was literally just like a straight in first hour, like make it happen. I maybe had like 20 conversations that first day. And I honestly had no idea what I was doing. I left, I did 327 dials, went home, went to bed, and I was tired. I was like, what have I done? I don't know what I've done. I don't know what's going on. It was just calling straight for like 7-8 hours.
Yeah, and it's exhausting. I literally took my first job out of the military, doing door-to-door sales. We were selling baggy pants door to door. They looked like gym pants that were multicolored for like $10. And I would just run all day and just see as many. I didn't know anything about sales. It's, hi, how you doing? Check this out. In the store, these are like $40. Today we're clearing them out for $10.
Yeah,
it was that simple.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, it's just finding at the time you kind of are like, what am I doing? I don't know. You struggle. I think you're struggling to like validate it for a lot of people in their first sales job. They're like, what is the point? What am I doing this for? Right? Because when you first start out, you're not getting paid the big bucks, or you think you're failing loads and loads, right? So you're getting all this kind of like feedback saying basically quit and stop. But it's like that old saying, isn't it? It's like most people win by just outlasting everyone else. That's it. So you just keep going. You finally start to work out how to do it. It's like what you said there. It's just like, probably first person you met, you're like, hey, this is $10. And like 100 people in, you're like, hey, this was 40, now it's 10. And you start to develop like little tactics and strategies and ways of doing it. And you like learn. But it's just hard to go through those initial failures, isn't it? Right. As a new seller. Anyway, I don't know about you. That's what I struggled with the most.
Oh my God. The guy who took me out, who was sold me on the opportunity, and it's still sales, he was selling me on the opportunity.
Yeah.
He takes me into Tower Records, and, this, when there was records, there were still vinyl and CDs, right? Like we jump out of his car, we drove for 40 minutes, and he's like, all right, so we're going to be promoting these all day long. Why don't you throw a pair on? And I'm like, what? He wanted me to take off my pants and throw a pair of these pants on. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that, dude. I'm wearing a polo shirt. I'm not wearing a pair of colored baggy pants. So I'm like, look, I was here and brought in as a management trainee. You do your thing. I'm here to observe, and we'll go from there. And he's like, all right, follow me. he hands me like 20 pair of these pants to carry into Tower Records. And literally, I have no idea what the fuck is going on. And he goes to the front of the store, and I think we're just making a delivery.
Yeah.
And he starts pitching the receptionist. And, I'm standoffish. I really don't understand or comprehend what's going on. And she starts waving him off and stuff. And so then he's like, all right, come on. And he starts walking down the aisles of Tower Records and pitching their customers, right? And then I hear this. This is the very first pitch I ever heard in my life that got me involved with this company that I stayed with for, decades. But I bought them out. Figure the odds on that. And then I just hear this dude screaming at the top of his lungs, "Get the out of here." Right. And, he's running and jumps over the counter, straight running to me. And I look at James, this dude who's pitching the Tower Records customers. I look at him, he looks at me, and he goes, "Run!" And I'm like, shit. So we take off running, and this dude is chasing us, and I'm running for the door. And we get out the door, and James is like, "Keep going." And I'm like, "What are we doing?" I didn't know if we broke a law. And he runs across the street into McDonald's parking lot. I remember it like yesterday. Like, fuck, stop. What are we doing? Right? Yeah. He's like, "Come here." And he starts pitching all these Hispanics that were doing the landscaping at McDonald's. And he starts selling. He dropped like 7. Anyway, long story short, I'm like, "Take me back, dude. I don't know what we're doing. Take me back." This dude, man, I need to make money. I just got out of the military. And he goes, "Just hang tight, dude. I'm telling you, you can make $150 a day. I make $150 every day." And I'm like, "Oh man, nah, I don't think so, dude." He goes, "All right, do me a favor. Wait till lunch. Because if I go back, I only work off commission. If I go back, I'm not going to make money today. I'll buy you lunch." Long story short, that was my first gig. And then eventually, you're out there, you're on your own, and you go out there and you're selling different products door to door. And you really find out what you're made of, especially at like 3:00 in the afternoon. You spent $10 on gas in another city, and you've pitched 100 people already, and you've sold nothing. And then you go through your third asshole who wants to fight you and calls you every name in the book and chases you outside. And you're like, "What am I doing?
What am I doing?
Yeah. Why am I here? Why am I doing this?" And then, or another day, you go in and you had another 3:00 day. You've sold nothing. You go in and you're sweet and you pitch the secretary, and then her boss comes out, and then her friends come out, and they're like, "Why don't you get a real job? You're such a loser. You're pathetic. You come into our business and you disturb us. You're pathetic." That was one of the days that I almost cracked, that I almost gave up.
Yeah. It's tough.
But I remembered, why am I doing it?
Yeah, that's important, I think.
But that was the one that, like, I literally sat down and cried and prayed to God to give me strength, because I had a bad week, dude. And I had to pay rent, and I'm like, "God, give me strength, dude. God, help me."
It's when you're kicked and you're down, when you're already down, and you find they're the real lessons, right? Is like, you need to go to those places though. It's like, like people these days, right? Like,
they're out, dude. They melt.
I like, it's like, sometimes when I'm coaching and working with people, they ask me this question. They just say like, cool, what do the most successful salespeople do? And I'm like, probably two things. I was like, one, they can actually just sit there for longer than 1 hour without getting distracted by something and do some actual work, right? Like they're not on iMessage or TikTok or Instagram or like getting this or checking that, like, or having a chat. They're just like doing something useful, like calling for 1 hour straight without being distracted. And the second thing is, when stuff gets tough, they remind themselves of why the heck they're doing it in the first place. And they keep going through it because they know that something at some point in the future will like come together. But if you're out the game, it's never going to come together, right? Like most of the time you're pretty close to the end zone, but there's going to be different like things pushing you back, right? Sometimes
and it's a journey, like our mascot's a rhino because you got to have tough skin.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I mean, it doesn't faze me a bit. No just means next opportunity, or they don't know enough about our product or service. Right. And the sooner I get a no, and handle the objection or make sure that I've handled the objections even before the no, right? So that they know enough about our product or service. As long as it's a no, let's move on. Next opportunity. Let's rock and roll. I'm not bothered at all. But that's, a muscle you build over time.
A lot of reps, aka a lot of no's, like to get to that point as well.
Yeah, I would be Hulk from all of those reps.
Yeah, I wish I was in that good a shape.
Yeah. So you got into SDR game right out of college, and then so where did it lead you? And how did you know? What? I like this. I'm good at it. When did you know that? You know what? I got this.
Yeah, not for a while. When I've actually really thought about why the heck did I continue, some of it was, like my story was, I grew up in the north of England and then I moved to London to do this sales job, which is in the south of England. And none of my family or friends had moved down there. And all of them had said like, what are you doing? Why would you go to London? Like, it sucks there. There's just millions of people and it's expensive and all that sort of stuff. And so, but that for me is when people say, essentially, you can't do something. I'm like, well, I'm going to prove you wrong and I will do it. So that was it was like an ego-y thing for me where it's like, you've triggered something in me. Now I need to prove you wrong. So when times were really hard on my first day, week, first few months where I was like, maybe they were right. Maybe I was wrong. I was still so stubborn around the fact that I was like, well, I'm not going to tell them that. I'm going to continue until I've got nothing left in the tank. I was like, I always know there's something, even if I'm, running on fumes here, like, that there's something. And I always believed anyway, it was like, I am closer to working something out than I believe I am. Like sometimes when it's the hardest, you're the closest for it to like come together sort of thing. And that was from other past experiences, I think, in my like childhood that kind of taught me that anyway. But it was definitely just being super stubborn at first to get like through it and kind of like tortoise in the hair. The people in my I was like one of 9 people. After 9 months, I was the only one standing, and all that like everyone else had either been fired or quit. And all that taught me was just like reinforced the fact that I was like, and then they promoted me for loyalty, and I was like, Well, I wasn't even the best. Or from what I could see, I wasn't the best, but I just outlasted other people. So therefore I became the best. So it was a different way of winning, where I was like, everything had been, told me that like, it was like talent and, you got all these like skills. And actually I was like, I don't have much talent in sales, and I don't have many skills because I've never done it before. So the only thing I do have is the ability to work harder than the other people and just not quit, just keep moving forwards, even though I'm kind of hating whatever this is. So then that happened, and like something triggered in me that was like, okay, that is a lesson for when things are tough. And the light bulb switches just started coming on, where I was like, I'm getting some wins. I started to prove it to myself. I got this kind of like belief from evidence that I could do it, whereas I didn't have that before, because I'd just got no evidence because I'd never done it, right? But I started to collect these little bits of evidence, like you have a phone conversation. Someone was like, yeah, I like the sound of that. Let's have a meeting about it. Okay, great. Well, yeah, we'd like to do business with you. Oh, right, fine. Like you start to kind of build up that confidence bit, I think. So that happened over quite a long period of time. And then I went into managing bigger deals, got promoted again. Managed progressively bigger deals before, after like 3 or 4 years, people said, hey, do you want to do leadership? Or is that like something that you care about? I was like, well, yeah, I do, because you can probably tell that I like helping other people get their deals done. And actually, one thing that's interesting for me is I get more from other people doing well that I've helped contribute to. Weirdly, I just get more from that than I do from closing my own deals. And everyone was always like, but Chris, like, you make way more money by closing your own deals than you do by helping other people. I was like, I know, but it fulfills me more. So I went back and I was like, at that point, you're really tempted, right? 'Cause you're like, right, I can earn like X amount more $1,000 a year doing this myself, or I can go and do this and I enjoy it more. I remember one thing that my dad used to say to us when we were kids was, because we always used to be like, Dad, can we get a better car because our car sucks? And like, get a better house, our house like sucks. And he was always just like, look, guys, we can go and do those things, but I'll need to go to work and work like 12, 14 hours a day. Whereas right now I can pick you up from school sometimes and we can go and play, football or, sports or whatever in the back garden together. So the choice is yours. Do you want me to go to work and never see me and we'll have a nice house and car? Or do you want me to come pick you up from school? We were always like, nice car, right? Because we just like, that was that's the pressure as a kid. You don't think about it that deeply, right?
Well, not my kid. My kid says, let's get both, Dad.
Yeah, let's do both and more, and give me all the money as well if that's possible. And he's like, but then my dad used to say to us, he's like, guys, like, the value of something is not what you gain, it's also what you lose. So I always used to go back to this when I was making career decisions, where I was like, right, the value is what I lose. What am I going to lose? Right, I'm going to lose 50 or 40 or whatever amount of thousands of dollars a year by choosing this option, but I'm also going to lose the fact that I just get a lot of more enjoyment from this bit. So it's kind of like weighing that up on the weighing scales, whereas actually, like, normally I'm like, well, another $40,000. Well, of course I'm going to go and do that because like that's the only thing. Whereas actually, like, my dad, like, ringing in my ear kind of meant I started to think back to like, oh, what am I losing as well? What am I losing? Because otherwise I was just focused on what I was gaining. So I ended up actually deciding I'm just going to go with like what I enjoy, went down the leadership route, and yeah, I earned less to start. But interestingly, what I found was because I enjoyed it more, I worked harder I got better results in the long term. And then eventually I earned way more than I would have continuing to do.
So I don't think you gave up something for something. I think you invested that time into making even more, because I got to tell you, I've literally trained tens of thousands of people in several countries around the world.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't make the sales, I made an override off all those sales. So if I'm only making 5% of the sales,
yeah,
and they're making 20%, or 25 or 30 or 40, I'm only making 5.
Yeah.
But I did 10,000 sales today and they only did 20.
Yeah.
And I earned from everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I developed my skills and I fell in love with training. I fell in love with leading from behind, right? Paying it forward and teaching people that they can, whatever I can do, they can do as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's an investment. It's not a trade-off. It's an investment of how you can have both. So now you can still, and you built your own company. Let's talk about that. You built $1 million company in 23 months by yourself. How did you do that? And what were you selling?
I was, essentially selling myself in terms of knowledge, right? But selling what I'd learned over the last 15 odd years, repurposing that into training programs, basically, specifically for SDRs and SDR leaders. That's what I do. I sell now. But in terms of how I built the business itself, I think a lot of the business was honestly built not from day one in the business. Most of it was built from the knowledge that I'd accrued over those 15 years in the first place of networking, building my, like contact base that I could reach out to, etc. And that was like my first step in actually building the business revenue wise. Was first 6 months I just reached out to everyone that I knew, but I'd spent the last 10, 12 years before that meeting at least 1 to 2 new people a week in the space as an extra side hustle, going to events, all of that stuff. So I just had, I had 100 extra mates every year, 1,000 mates over the course of 10 years. And then when I needed to actually cash that investment in, give them a call or drop them a DM, I had the list and I knew exactly what I could say, go and research them and say to them, right? Even if that was, let's have a little catch up. What are you up to now? I'm up to this. Oh, interesting. We might have a need for that right now. Oh, double interesting. Right, let's talk about it then. And that was my first customer. They were my first customers for the first, 6 to 12 months. That kind of got me going. And that, allowed me the breathing room to kind of learn some stuff about being a business owner, because I wasn't particularly used to it. And then I think there was one of the other things that was so helpful for me was I'm building the business as for me, it's a lifestyle business. Hence that's why I've not hired anyone. And because it's a lifestyle business, it is literally on my side, 9 to 5. So I can spend my mornings and my evenings with the kids. Because that's why I started the business in the first place. Whereas before, I didn't have that North Star goal where I need to be online here, offline there. And that's helped my decision making a lot with what I sell. Rather than me saying yes to everything, I've been like, right, well, I've only got 8 hours today, so I need to use that in the most profitable way that I possibly can. And it's made my brain actually think about that rather than just be like, I'll take any revenue. And so a lot of those decisions have been tough, but have allowed me to be like, right, well, actually, yeah, that could be a bit of a punt, but probably just stay in my lane here and get really good just there. Whereas what I see with a lot of my friends and entrepreneurs is they're constantly chasing the next shiny thing rather than just getting really, really good in there and fast in their swim lane, so to speak. And to your point as well.
Because you're going to end up trying to be everything to everyone, and you'll end up being nothing to no one eventually.
Yeah, that's it. I think and especially with the markets and stuff at the moment, it's tough. And I think my view is depth is better than width. Ultimately, right? Depth of relationships, depth of your customer base, all that sort of stuff. So that's what's been that was kind of the secret sauce really to doing that kind of, I guess, without help or by myself. That I know it's a fancy new term, that's solopreneurship stuff, but it's all the same really, right? It's just one person business. So
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being a solopreneur.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, an entrepreneur, solopreneur, self-made man, it's all the same. But at the end of the day, if you want to scale, you need a team.
Yeah.
That's just reality. Unless you came up with, an invention and or something that you got bought out, right? Or you're getting royalties on. But other than that, there's no way, right? I mean, if you look at most successful scalable companies, but it all has to do with your goals. Because, I love working with salespeople. They have a soft spot in my heart because I am one. And I know how tough it is when people are working in the office and they have these cushy jobs and they're doing admin or they're doing support for the salespeople. I know in the back of my mind, you have it easier than the people out on the battlefield that put it all on the line or work for commission. You don't. You're comfortable. You get a paycheck. And if you're not comfortable with the money you're making, it's because you chose comfort. You didn't choose sales. So at the same time, who do I have more empathy for? I have more empathy for that guy that's out in the field or that girl that's out in the field and putting it all on the line. And the way to keep it going for me, if we go back to those first days when I was in the field, and I wanted to quit 100 times. 100 times I wanted to quit. But I'd always remember my why, and my why was greater than the pain I was going through. And my why was I wanted to buy my mom a house.
Yeah.
And she went through hell for me. And so I did.
Yeah.
I bought her house eventually. And then I did it again. I bought her house twice. Because the other one had stairs and she got older. So I'm like, all right, Mom, we'll just get you we'll just get you another one. How about that?
No stairs.
That's the why. The why is what drives us. But and then I went on to become a sales leader and opening up offices for this organization. Eventually bought them out, and still they are my mentor today. Larry Tannenbaum, he's a legend. Al Basada, these guys that helped develop me, totally forever grateful. Now, for your situation, you actually started off scaling Perkbox from $18,000 to $10 million. So how did you scale that? And what were the lessons learned there? Hey, folks, if you're enjoying this episode and you're picking up what I'm putting down and what the guests are actually putting out there, do me a favor, like and comment what you liked about the episode, or even comment what would you like to hear, what topics would you like to hear in the future? Because believe me, it matters. I read absolutely every single one of them, and I want to bring you more and more value to help companies scale so that we can grow this podcast to make a bigger difference. Now let's get back to the show.
First and foremost, it was I nearly got fired in the first few months, because we didn't do any revenue. We had no idea how to sell what it was. And the CEO said to me, hey, if you do not sell anything this week, Friday I'm going to fire you. And on Friday we hadn't sold anything. And then by mid-afternoon, we did this deal with a company. And I remember, because you get worried, don't you? Right. So then you start getting more creative. When you're under pressure, your brain goes to places that it wouldn't otherwise go to if you're comfortable. We did this deal, and I remember the CEO said to me, he was like, right, well, you're not going to get fired this week, but just to let you know, that deal is not going to make our business any money. I was like, he's like, you need to do better deals next week or I'm going to fire you. But something had kind of like, this light bulb had like switched. And again, going back to like, I'd got a tiny bit of belief because I'd got the evidence that I could do a deal with whatever we were selling. And then from there, like the next month we did like, it was like 12 deals, and then it kind of just snowballed, from that point. The thing that we got right with that team was we got hiring right. Really, really, really right. We had a really good, strong nucleus of 3 guys in the first instance. And then we just grew the whole team on the back of those 3 guys. And we were ruthless with interviewing. We did not take anyone on who didn't fit the values of the company. First and foremost, they had to like actually get through these like behavioral interviews first. We didn't care necessarily about like the sales skills too much, but we were like, the behaviors are really, really important, because if we're going to go somewhere, we all need to be on the same boat here. And I totally stole that playbook from the England World Cup winning rugby head coach, where he called it this culture book. And basically the secret was that he got the team to write down and agree the rules that they wanted to live by. Rather than him making the rules, they made the rules and he just governed it at the top or signed it off. So we used to do that. Like for everything, the team would be like, okay, right, we're behind on quota. Rather than me saying, you guys do this, it's like, we're behind on quota. What do you guys think? I'm going to leave the room. I'm going to come back in 10 minutes. You guys tell me what you're going to do or what you've agreed as a team. And they'd be like, right, so we're going to do 150% of our normal quota for calls today. Okay, cool. Well, sign it off. Done. Right, go. Rather than them going and hitting the phones for half an hour straight after when they're motivated from like my speech, they'd agreed to it. They'd committed to it. So it was this like commitment bias that's what the behavior was. And then they all just did it for the whole day. The next day, the day after that, until we got to the goal. So that was like those 2 things that was the combo. I think it's to your point. It's like you can't scale without a team. But you got to make that team all on the same boat.
You got to get buy-in. You got to sell them on them. So telling is not selling. Managers tell people what to do. Leaders bring out the best in people.
And that was one of the things that was the thing with them was, and we scaled headcount, but we deliberately didn't scale headcount in line with revenue. We brought in extra trainers or software or whatever to essentially improve the optics for each person, right? So if they were like, if one person was 3x this quarter, then the whole question was like, with them, how can we get you to produce 4x or 3.5x back to the business based on what we're spending for you? So we had those conversations with the reps all the time, whereas most reps, they're never told, hey, we spend 50 grand on you this year. We want 500 grand from you. At the moment, you're not profitable, right? In the eyes of the top of the business, where we were constantly connecting those dots with the top to the bottom of the sales floor, top of the business to the bottom of the sales floor. So they knew what they knew what the whole point was, and that there had to be often tough decisions. And that either kind of lit that fire and gave them that understanding of how business works, ultimately at the end of the day when things are tough. Or, but they also had this like safety net where they could come to me or come to the other managers and say, hey, it's time for me to leave because I don't think I can give this 100%. So that was one of the things we used to say, right? When someone had a challenge or they were upset or emotional about something, I used to say to them, rather than us have a chat now, go away for 48 hours, speak to your mum and dad or whatever, your brother, your mates, and come back in, and you need to tell me, are you in or you're out? And in is you're 100% in, out is 99% or below, because I can't have anyone on this team not giving 100%. And just so you know, it's okay if you want to leave or you can't do that. I will help you. I'll introduce you to other people. Sometimes people have just had enough of this or whatever, and that's fine. And the people actually did that. They're like, Chris, I honestly, I don't think I can give this what you guys are requiring me to give it anymore. That was the beauty of that convo and that environment was we weren't carrying anyone, right? It's kind of like, top sports teams now, the players are actually encouraged to say when they're injured or ill because they can't operate at 100% rather than just, let's keep going. And you see this with workers all the time. They're pissed off, they're frustrated, they're this, they're that. They're only turning up giving 40%, 60%. The rest of the team are then carrying them. And in a sales environment, like, we just found we can't carry anyone, but we equally don't want to just be constantly firing everyone. We want that to be their choice, so we gave it to them.
Yeah, 100%. And the bottom line is there's really two things that you need to do to be successful in sales. Either do more or get better.
Yeah.
Right? And that takes the right attitude, because if they don't have the right attitude to bring out, you can bring out that attitude, that great attitude and an attitude of gratitude and get that buy-in. But for the ones that just don't have that,
yeah, you can.
I can teach you the skills all day long. I can reframe you. I can use psychological triggers and create different perspectives for you. I can identify your limiting beliefs, and we can just tear those down and empower you to understand that sales is actually not about you, Chris. It never was. It's not about your tie. Sometimes it can be about your tonality, but in essence, it's about your attitude. And attitude, if you have a shit attitude, I can't make you better.
Yeah. 100%.
But if you have the right attitude and the commitment, right? So it's actually those two things is how to be successful. But the third thing is actually commitment. You got to commit, right? You can't be half in, half out, because it'll never work. Right. No, I remember my sales leader, John Keller, early on in my career. I had a horrible day. I was out in the field and I just got kicked out of a company. I was in there pitching. I got kicked out and I was going down the road, and then I went into another company and a total asshole reamed me out, and I left that company. And then another leader saw me go out of that business, and I just lost it. He goes, "What's up?" I'm like, this is fucked. I can't do this anymore. I don't need to do this. I can get my degree. I can do so many other things. I don't need this. I lost my attitude, right? And he's like, "Wow, cool. Calm down, dude. John, man, last week you made more money than everybody in the office. What's going on with you?" I'm like, I'm just sick of it, dude. And we were selling these portfolios, right? And literally, I had one in my hand, and I just threw it as far as I could into this field. I hadn't made any money that day. I sold one, which means I made $2 off a $10 sale. I'd spent $10 on lunch, $10 on gas. So I was down $18, right? Yeah. I totally lost my attitude. And he goes, I'm like, "What about you, man? How are you doing?" It was a new product, right? And I knew I could outsell Todd. The guy's name was Todd. He was an assistant manager, right? And I'm like, I smoked him every day, dude. I was smoking everybody. And I'm like, "How'd you do?" He goes, "I'm doing all right." But he had a good attitude, right? And I'm like, "All right, how many is all right?" He goes, "Man, I'm doing fine. Actually, I'm just going down the side streets." He didn't want to tell me he did only like 5, right? And I did 1. I just had a bad day. Like, I was selling and people were going underneath their counters and bringing the box up and say, "You know what? Why don't you buy some from me? I've got tons of them." Right? And I was just like, oh my God. I threw this. Anyway, long story short, he told me go down side streets. I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll be fine." I went and jumped in my car, and I'm like, man, And I just sat there contemplating, am I going to quit? What am I going to do? And he raced back to the office and told the manager, look, John has lost his shit. He threw one of the products across the field. I saw him looking for it. I don't think he even found it. He's going to quit. So I just want you to know he's going to come back and he might nag out the rest of the people in the office, right? So I didn't know this all happened. I pulled in late, and guess who met me out front?
Hey.
The manager, John.
Okay, wow.
Because Todd let him know what's up. And I was a pretty intense guy. And so John's outside and he comes up. I get out of my car because I got to return the merchandise, right?
Yeah.
So I get out the car and he goes, hey, man, how are you? And I said, I'm not good, man. I had a terrible day. He goes, yeah, man, it happens. I heard that Todd saw you out there. I said, yeah, man, I lost my attitude bad. And, I really questioning what I'm doing here. And he goes, you know what? Why don't you do this? Why don't you get back in your car and go home? You've been doing great and you had a bad day. He goes, you don't have to return the merchandise tonight. John, just go home and have a good think. And if you're out, no worries. Come back in the morning. You hear all the people ringing the bell in the office. They all made $100. You can hear lots of people did well, but we're not going to go into that. Go home, and then tomorrow morning, let's talk. Give yourself a break. And I did. I went home. I came back the next day, and I'm like, I'm in. If these fucking guys can do it, so can I.
And that's the thing, is sometimes you just need that space to think and like take the emotion out of it and just be like, right.
Yeah, and I needed a checkup from the neck up, right? Yeah. I needed perspective. And when I found out that these guys, lots of them made over $100 and did just fine, I just went to a territory that was already worked 100 times and people were trying to sell the same stuff back to me, right? So it was a trigger. So, it's all about falling in love with your why more than what you're doing. Because, I was in Japan last year, a year and a half ago, and I was speaking to a bunch of entrepreneurs, about 100 people. And, they didn't, without any preparation, I was there with a friend who was doing a keynote. He did his keynote, and then they said, hey, John, what do you got to say? So, I said, you know what? It's really simple for me. It's really simple. Because they asked me about maintaining their attitude, keeping going, even when things are tough, or doing sales, even though they don't like it yet. And I just gave them a reframe. I talked about, sales is just helping people. It's about service, solving problems, and making sure people are satisfied. And as long as you love helping people, then sales is a noble thing to do. It's noble.
Yep.
And if you don't like what you're doing or the product and your situation right now, then if you're not in love with that, then fall in love with why you're doing it long enough to get good at it.
Yeah.
And the game will change.
Exactly. Stay in the game long enough. That's it. Outlast other people.
Yeah. So obviously you've done it long enough to now building out courses from SDR all the way to AE. And do you focus more on the individuals or do you service companies and train their SDRs?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, both. So the courses, like the B2C side of things, like people can come on, buy those courses, individuals. But then, I do custom training programs as well for companies.
Right on. And typically, what do you think most companies get wrong in developing their own SDR systems and or sales, or
Two things,
with their
yeah.
salespeople? Yeah.
Yeah, two things. Don't they don't actually align the reps on what message they need to take to market in the first place, right? The reps are all saying very, very wildly different things, and then everyone calls it creativity. It's not that they're taking creativity away. It's just that the reps actually have no idea how to speak to the person in front of them. If it's a CTO, a CRO, a CEO, like, what is the problem or problems that that person has? What is their day to day? What do they go home to their spouse and moan about? Right? Like, no one seems to know that and how they can actually speak to them against those challenges that they buy on the back of trying to solve. Or very few companies do. So the reps lack clarity on the message. The second thing is the reps then lack clarity on how they are expected to execute, operationally, right? It's like, okay, whether it's cold calls, what's the structure, cold email structures, DM structures, whatever it is that they are being asked to do on a day-to-day basis, they have no frameworks to be able to actually properly execute against it to the standard that the company is demanding of them, because the company's never actually given them the message or the ability to execute. So it comes down to skills ultimately. But they're the two things companies mostly get wrong. They just say, hey, this is a problem. Do training on it. Train. Then actually most of the time it's not even the biggest problem or the highest impact area. So they're the things. The way I think about it is like any team training, it's like 4 steps. Diagnose what are they doing well and badly. Then actually design something to give clarity on like the message they need to take to market. Then train them, actually deliver some training that helps them execute it on their own as human beings, but with guardrails on typically, or like SOPs, etc. And the fourth part is then like, how can you deploy it across the rest of the org? So then everyone is able to do it, whether they're new without me. So it's like new reps, experienced reps, other segments of reps, different regions. So 4 Ds basically: diagnose, design, deliver, deploy.
Yeah, and you talk a lot about in your post about how managers or the difference between managers and leaders, telling versus selling. For me, selling is enrolling. For me, selling is a service. And telling is not selling. And someone sitting behind the desk who's not willing to get in the trenches with their people, for me, is not an expert and not an authority. And we don't develop sales leaders to do sales. We develop sales leaders to develop new salespeople. So there's quite a difference. But what do you think are the main things that the companies get wrong as far as developing? Because I don't always see it as the problem with the SDRs. I see it no bad student, bad teacher.
Yeah, I mean most of the challenges are leadership level. Ultimately, is like it's the leader's problem as to like why the reps aren't taking the right message to market, or they're all taking something random and different. The manager's problem or issue that they don't know what frameworks to execute on day to day. They're just again doing something super random and unscalable. So ultimately, it comes down to the leader, right? And the leader, most of the time, the problem for the leader is they don't take accountability. It's always everyone else's problem. But the book starts and stops with them. And that's the thing. But most leaders are not reflective enough to actually sit down and be like, well, what could I have done better? They just say, well, the reps are shit, or the reps' attitude sucks, or this, or they can't do cold calls, or they can't do that.
Who trained them?
Who hired them?
Right, who hired? Who chose them? And then who trained them?
Yeah,
you say if you say they suck, then I think you suck.
Exactly. So, and it's who hired them, who trained them, who onboarded them, who's communicating to them every day what they want and how they want it to be done, and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, it ultimately comes down to the whole thing is a leadership issue. If you're off quota, part of it is training the reps, right? But it's just going to resurface if you don't also train the leaders. So that's one thing that I'll do as well is we do a lot of work with the leaders.
Amen. I love it. And so what do you think is the secret sauce that most people get wrong when they're doing their outreach or cold calling, the SDRs specifically? Because I don't believe in scripts, but I believe in process. 100%. You got to know your value proposition. Do you increase sales, drive performance, reduce costs? What do? What is the benefit? Why are you getting on a call and enrolling someone? So what do you think it is that they get wrong?
They don't realize that they're having a one-to-one conversation with that person. They're saying the same thing to absolutely everyone, right? And usually that's a very generic, broad message, right? We save you time. Cool. Doesn't every technology meant to save time, right? Or like, we save you money. It's like, great. Well, everyone says like that. Whereas actually it needs to be like, hey, John, you are the founder of this business. I'm guessing because you're the founder of this business, these are a couple of the challenges that you're facing at the moment. Here's how I can support you with those specific challenges as a specific founder of this specific sort of business. And like, it's about specificity, like being specific sells, whereas being broad doesn't, right? That's where you just like fall into kind of the noise, right? Or you're drowned out. As being specific, you're actually in a one-to-one convo. Most sales reps, we're sending so many emails, so many calls. We're not thinking about each one as an opportunity to have a one-to-one chat. We're just like, cool, send 1,000 emails, say the same thing. We're thinking of viewing that as like we're sending that to 1,000 people all at the same time and having that same convo, whereas actually the person's receiving that as an individual. They're not reading it being like, oh, cool, let's get 1,000 people around the computer screen and all read the same message at the same time. They're reading it as an individual and thinking, is this for me? No, well, leave it alone then. The same on the phone. Is this for me specifically? Well, probably not. And people don't realize that they need to have those, they need to realize like you're in a one-to-one conversation most of the time at prospecting level, right? So speak to the individual. What do they want? How can you win their trust? Deepen the relationship just with that person, and then maybe you've got a shot at asking them for a bit more of their time.
Yeah, that's the number one. That's the best thing I've ever heard. The specificity of, hey, your industry, your competitors are doing this and that. They have these problems. Are you having the same kind of problems?
Yeah, show me you know me. That's what I want as a human, right? I know the bots can do a bit of that, but they're skimming the surface. Like the human's place in this world with it is like depth of relationship that they're able to communicate and convey to that person, where that person thinks, oh, cool, well, finally a salesperson who actually knows a bit more about me and how they can maybe help me. I trust this person a bit more. They're an expert. Kind of like that, like doctor consultant style scenario where it's like, I trust this person because they've taken a bit of time to understand where I'm at, or what sort of person I maybe am, or what sort of problem I have. And then they've communicated that point of view to me, right? It's so much more powerful to be like, if you walk into a doctor's, you're limping, the doctor, what do they say? Hey, John, looks like you've got a leg injury. Can you tell me more about that? Right. One of the things for sellers.
Yeah, you're a genius. What gave it away? My limp?
Yeah. But we don't do that as most sellers, right? As most sellers, we see things online and we just say, hey, buy my stuff, rather than, hey, John, I saw you got a new role. That probably means you're thinking about this, that, and the other. Where are you at?
Amen
with that
and amen. So so what are you doing? So I love the specificity thing. That's because for me, different is always better than better.
Yeah.
When you're different, you're better than better. Right. And the key to consistency for me is being consistent.
Yeah, exactly. Just turning up and doing something, right?
Yeah,
Or
and the
taking
best, and one of the greatest abilities in sales, availability. Do you show up? One of the superpowers in sales is availability. Do you show up every day, every day, every day? And I
yeah,
love the
that's
show me, you know me, because
yeah,
that's how you can be different, and that will trump being better than better. So I
yes.
love the specificity. What would be the second tip that you give individuals?
Yeah, specificity sales. Sit there for 1 hour a day and don't get distracted. Put your phone in a drawer, turn your emails off, turn all of these other notifications off, and actually just do some deep work. Right? Whether that is an hour of just straight calling without getting distracted. Then you'll take your brain to a place where you're actually focused on the prospect, and you're able to then, when they do finally pick up, or you do write the email, or whatever you're doing to them with them, the quality of the work that you're delivering is going to be so much better, right? Just 1 hour a day. 99% of people, they cannot do it, but the top performers do it. And the third and final tip that I'll give people is, and this is one thing I've always lived by, and it's slightly more controversial in sales, but it's the second best answer in sales is not a no. It's a not right now, as long as you were able to qualify when. Because otherwise you start every month on zero. If you know that someone, and most buyers, they're not in the market immediately, right? But they will come back to you when the timing, or they will be in the market when the timing's right. Could be in a month, 2, 3 months time. If you learn as a seller that actually, this short-term relationship you're having with someone today who can impact your quota this month, the way to truly accelerate is also to learn how to build slightly longer-term relationships with your prospects who aren't ready right now. So it's actually the art of delayed gratification, right? You go back to like the marshmallow test stuff, right? And all that stuff. That in real life for sellers is someone saying, hey, John, not right now, but that's because I've got these 3 priorities, and then I'm going to get to this, but it's going to be in February. And then if you as John or the seller are like, okay, right, that sounds reasonable. I'm going to build a relationship with you between now and February without just ignoring you or putting you into some random automated email thing that invites you to construction events, but you don't even work in construction, as a random example. Then maybe I've got a shot at getting your business in February. And that's, those combos stack as well. You end up having multiple January, February, March, April, so on combos. So you start each month with something in your bank account to actually get after, right? Whether it turns to gold or not, and you can withdraw it, I don't know, but it depends on that game. So yeah, get obsessed with delayed gratification as well as just this immediate hit from this dopamine rush of like, cool, I've got a meeting now, or I've just sold something now, right? The best reps that I've seen are the ones that at the end of the day, when they say, cool, I've had 5 conversations today, one of them turned to a new meeting. Rather than saying 4 of them were a no, they're saying I've got 1 meeting for now, I've got 2 meetings for January, and then I've got 2 that I've completely disqualified because they're just like, I'm never going to buy your stuff. Right. But 2 of them, there's a shot there, and I'm willing to back myself to nurture them well enough to be able to get their business in the future and delay the gratification of it.
Yeah. And it's priceless. That's priceless advice, especially because, you don't get rich in sales. You don't. You get rich in building relationships, because wealth comes from building those relationships, nurturing those relationships, turning those no's in. And it's not a not right now. And I train my son whenever he asks me for anything, for the most part, it's never a no. It's a not right now, son. So it's not a no, it's a not right now. And let's work something out. And he's fine with that. And then he'll go into negotiating. When will that be, Dad? And or what do I need to do to get that? And I'm like, you're doing good. let's work it out. Because I want him to have those skills, and he's 7. Now, when his mama asks him to do something, he goes, "It's not a no, Mom."
Yeah, let's strike a deal.
It's a not. No, he says it's not right now.
Yeah.
And she goes, and she'll look at me. "You taught him that," and I'm like, "Yes, you're right. Yeah. I did." So, this will another question. So you wrote, and I encourage people to go and sign up for your newsletter. You wrote the newsletter pipeline, right?
The pipeline post, yeah.
The pipeline post. Where can people sign up for that and enroll in that? Because, you got great content out there. It's all proven. You're an authority, and you turned this into a $1 million business a year and a half out. So yes. It just speaks volumes to what you can do when you know what you're doing. So how do they sign up for that newsletter? Where do they go to enroll?
Yeah, chrisritson.xyz/newsletter. That's where you want to go.
And if companies want to reach out and work with you, is it the LinkedIn? Do they go to the LinkedIn? Because I'm a total fan of LinkedIn. What you're doing with your university from SDR to AE. How do people work with you there?
Yeah, DM me on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website, chrisritson.xyz, and you'll see all the sales pages there where you can sign up if you want to. If you want more info, DM me and come back to you.
Amen. Okay, and what do you think? You wrote the newsletter on pipeline. What do you think is the number one silent killer of sales pipelines that most CEOs don't even see, or sales leaders?
Their own leadership skills. Honestly, it's their own leadership skills and knowledge around how to do it in 2025, right? Like anything, things evolve, they adapt. And more than anything, I think this market with selling there's some core behavioral things that will never go away, and they'll be the same for long periods of time. But the actual tactics and the way to go about it and the execution has evolved, but not for anyone's fault other than the fact that buyers are evolving in how they buy, right? And what the buyers are really saying to us is they don't want lots of people reaching out to them. They want a few reaching out really, really well. They're happy to engage with people who are going to be useful for them and vendors, but they're not happy to engage with a bunch of folks who have no idea who the heck they are. And why they could be beneficial. So go for depth. As a leader, everything you should do is about depth on training, skill set, etc. perspective. Well, that's my I guess my final word on it.
It's Chris Ritson, people. Show me you know me. Specificity. If you want to be successful and scale your operations in your organizations, reach out to him. He'll fix your pipelines. He'll identify the root causes of what's going on with your organization and help you scale your business. Thanks, Chris, for being on the show. Appreciate you. That's a wrap, folks. Thanks for joining me today. And if you got value from this episode, do me a favor. Like, subscribe, and refer a friend. And if you want even more value, go to thesalesmachine.com. Click on resources, and there's tons of resources there to increase profits and drive performance in your business. Right on, come on.